Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast with PJ and Mike. Now find yourself a seat at their table.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast with PJ and Mike. I'm PJ.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're doing a follow-up episode to an episode we did a few months back. So if you remember, we were talking about the comic book series Spider-Man 94. And we spoke about it, I think, when like the first issue came out. We kind of did a review of that issue because we both loved that cartoon when we were kids. So we were really excited to see the comic book come out and continue that storyline. Here we are several months later, probably 5 or 6 months later. The series has concluded. It was a 5-issue miniseries and it's concluded. And we are going to now give our thoughts on that storyline, that comic book in its entirety. So you want me to jump right into the little recap of what happened in this series and then we'll give our thoughts?
Yeah, I think the folks at home, hopefully they realize that this is a continuation of the TV series, right?
Yes.
So this is the 94 cartoon series, which ended on a cliffhanger where Peter Parker is going through different dimensions trying to find Mary Jane, and it ended on that cliffhanger.
Yes.
And now
it ended with us not knowing where Mary Jane was, if Peter would ever find Mary Jane. And that happened in the 90s, and then we've been waiting for 30-somewhat years here to find out what happened to Mary Jane, and did Peter Parker save her, and are they reunited, and were they able to finally tie the knot and do all these things that we've been expecting? And for years we're waiting for this, and Marvel then announced last year they were going to give us a continuation of the Spider-Man cartoon in the form of a comic book, which I know we all kind of wanted it to be a cartoon, the way they brought back X-Men with X-Men 97 on Disney+. They went a comic book route, excuse me, on this one, which is fine. I'm a comic book guy. I love comic books. Yeah. So I was totally fine with it being as a comic book. So here's where we are. The general premise, I think, like we said, was this is supposed to pick up where the cartoon ends. In issue 1, we find that Peter and Mary Jane are already back together, and they put a little footnote when they're back together in one of the panels in the comic book that says, this is a story to be revealed later, teasing that we're going to find out how Peter and Mary Jane got back together, how Peter rescued her, the whole thing.
Yeah, keep that in mind, folks.
Keep that in mind. That's going to be an important plot point because they tell us that's a story for later and make us think we're going to expand on that. And then we get her introduced basically to the villain of this 5-issue miniseries, who is Moreland and Kane. And that's basically what happens in issue 1. Then issue 2, there's a bit of a fight with Kane, who is the villain. Peter's personal life sort of falling apart a little bit. We find out that Mary Jane's aunt is not as fond of Peter as Aunt May is of Mary Jane. So there's a little bit going on there, which is causing some tension. I think this is the first issue where we find that Kane has some sort of a connection with Peter and his memories. Yep. They have a little bit of a fight, but nothing crazy really happens in this one. Then issue 3 kind of delves more into Moreland's backstory and who he is and why he's doing what he's doing. And Peter loses a fight to I think that's when he's fighting Kane again. He winds up losing. Again, I'm keeping this light. If you want to read the book, go for it. I'm just kind of giving the overall story. And then you kind of get a hint that there might be another villain coming back into this comic book series. And in issue 4, Kraven the Hunter shows up. And again, Kraven now is, I guess, trying to hunt Moreland, Kane, and Peter at this point. Peter can't protect anybody. He's getting beat up left and right. He's not really doing a great job of Spider-Manning at this point. Things are coming to a head. There's about to be the big battle, which brings us to the final issue of issue number 5, where we get the final battle between Spider-Man and Moreland. Kraven shows up. He kind of helps them fight. Turns on Moreland and sort of turns on Moreland. They fight. There's a very weird ending where he like you think he kills him, but he doesn't kill him. He absorbs him. Yeah, and they become like one, I guess is the only way to describe what happens. And the story ends there between the fighting and the villain. Mary Jane's aunt decides that Peter's an okay guy after all, and Aunt May, I guess, knows that Peter is Spider-Man. They go swinging through the sky. And the story ends there. You'll notice we never got back to that story about how Mary Jane was found because they never tell us.
Yep. So, folks, talk about a huge disappointment.
Wow, what a huge disappointment.
I'm just doing like,
Yeah.
Instant reaction. I was totally disappointed. I thought this whole 5-issue thing was boring. dumb. And how could you not? I'm astonished that they did not wrap up how he got Mary Jane. That was the whole thing everyone was waiting for. I mean, totally.
That's how they sold the book. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they sold the book on too. So it's not only is it like that's what everybody wanted, that's pretty much what they told us we were getting. They said this is going to continue the storyline from the TV show. The TV show ended with that mystery. The first issue tells us this is a story that is going to be told,
Yeah.
and then it never gets told. It's like false advertisement, Marvel. I don't know what they're doing.
It was, for me, it's beyond disappointing. Like, I would even recommend this. I would even recommend this series. There's nothing, if you're a fan of that TV show, there's no point to this. And
it
wasn't
doesn't
even that,
feel like the TV show, like,
No.
at all.
nothing
It
about
doesn't
it.
have the same tone. It doesn't. If you were gonna bring back old villains from that TV show, then bring back the ones people would want to see. They don't.
Yeah.
I like Craven in regular comic books. I love the character of Craven, but he served no purpose here.
Yeah, it just felt
And
like
he wasn't that big of a recurring character in the cartoon, really. I mean, he's in a couple episodes, but he wasn't in it as much as, say, like the Kingpin, or he wasn't in it as much as like Venom and the storylines of the cartoon with Craven for me were not the most important ones. I don't know. I don't know why they would choose to bring him back. I don't know why they would choose not to tell us what happened with Mary Jane. Disappointment is the right word, but confusing is another word for it, because
yes.
I really don't know what the point of this was.
It was, look, honestly, like, just right off the bat, well, I didn't love the whole idea of having Marloon as the main villain. I just was like, I can't remember if he was in the original TV show, but I just didn't like him as a villain. My whole thing was, for me going in, was like, all right, I want to see how he rescues Mary Jane. And you had the perfect thing where you can do a nice wrap up. You have the whole thing, because at the final episode of the TV series, he says, I'm going to go to each dimension. That was a perfect excuse to meet old villains, do a whole multiverse thing, Spider-Verse thing. And then that would have been great. And then it would have ended with him just reuniting with her.
Yeah.
But instead, we get this boring storyline about that we've seen countless times. He's basically a vampire. We've seen this kind of storyline within movies. And then Kane is basically like his, like a Frankenstein, like his son kind of thing. I mean, you spend like, there's five issues, right? I would probably say 3 out of the 5, you probably could have condensed into 1 issue. I mean,
yeah,
it was so repetitive. How many times, Father, I need more life. Father, who am I? I mean, that's how I was reading in my head. Father, this, Father, that. I need more life. It felt like a Blade Runner kind of thing.
So here's the thing with comic books, right?
Oh,
There's
my
this thing
God.
called is a term we use that's used in comic books where they're writing for the trade. So a trade paperback is the collected issues where you, instead of buying the single issues, you could buy it at the end. They collect it in one big book, right? And this book felt like they were writing for the trade, because they knew if it's only 2 or 3 issues, it wouldn't be enough to collect into one trade paperback. So they had to stretch this out to be at least 5 issues so they can slap a $25 price tag on a trade and sell it. Because it didn't need to be this many issues. You could have told the story in 2 issues, but then Marvel doesn't get the opportunity to make money off of this a second time. So they stretched it to be 5 issues of garbage.
Yeah.
Garbage. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. Like I said, you could have still made 5 issues, but 3 out of those 5 you could have credited to 1.
Made them better.
Yes. I mean, stuff I just can't believe that. I mean, like I said, I hated the villain. I thought he was so boring. Although King was boring. You barely see Mary Jane. You barely see Peter Parker. Peter Parker is like a mope in this whole thing.
Is getting his ass kicked the whole time, which I know is like Spider-Man's thing. Is
You know,
he gets beat up and then he has to overcome the odds and all that. I get it, but
those,
I didn't feel like there was any real redemption for him after getting his ass kicked, because he's not even the one who wins the battle at the end.
Yeah.
So it's just like he never got that redemption moment either, where he's like getting his ass handed to him for 3 issues in a row and then finally turns it around and wins. You don't even get that moment.
Dude, know what else turned me off too? I mean, they do this all the time in movies now with the comic movies. I think it's the last 2 issues, definitely the last issue, but I think the second to last issue, Marloon talks about, he has like, I guess, another secret identity, you know, and he's like some kind of doctor, and he has some kind of project called the Loca Project. I think it's the Loca Project. Anyway, you know, I'm going to transform Earth. It's another light beam that's going to shoot into the sky, Terra transform I mean, how many times have we seen that in like...
It's always the same storyline.
Holy, even that, I'm like, you got to be kidding me here. I mean, awful. I mean, I don't know. So I can keep just terrible, just so boring. What a waste of time. What a wasted opportunity, man.
And you know what I was wondering as I was reading it, right? Dude, I wonder if there are Spider-Verse comic books out there. right? And there's the movie, the Spider-Verse movies of the Miles Morales, Spider-Man, all the other stuff. I wonder if when they were originally putting this together, and I don't know if this happened or not, I'm just wondering, speculation,
Yeah.
did they start writing it and then did they say, this is too similar to all the other Spider-Verse stuff to have this guy dimension hopping, and they didn't want to show it again because it's too similar to other comic books that are already out there? I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm wondering if that's part of it, because there are Spider-Verse comics that are still published fairly regularly, and it is about different Spider-Man through different universes, and that's the only reason that I could think why maybe they started this and were like, we can't do that. It's too similar to other books we're putting out. But then that brings you back around to then why bother doing this in the first place? If the story everyone wants you don't think you could put out, then put out nothing instead, because no one asked for this book.
Yeah, I agree.
You
And
know what
I,
I mean?
and
It
I
wasn't
believe,
like there was petitions out there saying, give us a conclude.
Yeah.
None of that. None of that.
Mhm.
This wasn't something people were looking for or advocating for. This was a surprise to all of us that they were going to do this. And we were all like, oh, shit, that sounds fun. And then they don't deliver. And it's like, but what? As a retailer in the comic book industry, I'll put it from this perspective also, right? On any given day, right? New Comic Book Day is Wednesday. On any given Wednesday, there are multiple Spider-Man books that come out, whether it's Amazing Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, one of the Spider-Verse books. There's a Spider-Man Wolverine book. There's Ultimate Spider-Man. There are a ton. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
shows up in team books. There's all these different. So now you're putting another Spider-Man book on the shelf. And the way I look at it as a retailer is like, my customers have to choose which books they're going to buy. Do I have some people that will buy $200 worth of comic books every week? I sure do. Do I have some people that are going to buy one or two books a week just based on their favorite characters? Absolutely. If you're the second person who just wants to buy a Spider-Man book because they like that character, but you're not looking to spend a small fortune every week, you're forcing these customers to pick, which book should I buy? Should I buy Amazing Spider-Man, which is, everyone knows Amazing Spider-Man is the main Spider-Man book that's been going
Yeah.
since like the 60s.
Yeah.
Should that be the one I pick? Should I buy this Spider-Man 94 book, which is going to tie into a cartoon that I like, is a, nostalgia, all the other stuff, right? And you're forcing people to choose. And a lot of people chose when 94 came out to pick this book because of that nostalgia factor. And there were people that came into the shop that I had never seen before, like, new customers that came in because this book was announced. And now they bought the first issue, and maybe they bought the second issue, and then they start disappearing and they're not coming back to buy them again because, like you said, the book is not recommendable to anybody. It's not that great. You don't create new comic book fans and new returning customers to comic book shops by putting out material like this. And, if you want to do a Spider-Man story and you want to get people hyped on it, then in my opinion, rather than go back to the well of Spider-Man 94, really hype up your ongoing Spider-Man books that already exist and just make those good and try and bring people in that way. I don't know why you create an additional title and force people to have to make a decision. Do I buy title A or title B? Knowing that the nostalgia is going to draw people in and then drop the ball so badly. That's bad for my business, but that's bad for anyone who has a comic book store's business. Like, as a retailer, that pisses me off even more because, yeah, as a comic book fan and as a fan of the show, it's disappointing. As a retailer, it's taken money out of the business because now these people don't come back. And here's some inside baseball and how comic books work, and a little into the weeds, but it is relevant to this conversation. I have to order the books, right? Before number one came out, I have to make a decision as to how many I'm going to order. So I have no idea who's going to buy it. I pick a number that I think seems reasonable and I order it. I have to order number two before number one came out. So I don't know how number one is going to sell. I'm now ordering number two. Number one sells pretty good, right?
Right.
Because of the nostalgia. I've ordered already number two, hoping for the best. And now I'm ordering number three before number two comes out, right? I don't know that this book is going to take a giant shit. And now I'm over ordering and I'm stuck with product that I can't move.
Yeah.
Because the books are so bad and I don't have the time to readjust until I get to issue 4 or 5. And at this point, this is only a 5-issue series.
Yeah.
So as a retailer, a book like this hurts my business and makes me less inclined to buy as many copies of future books, whether it's about Spider-Man 94 or any sort of miniseries, when this is the quality of work that Marvel is going to put out. That's from the business end of it that people maybe don't hear as much, right? A lot of podcasts and stuff or YouTubers review the content of the book, and we're doing that. but you don't always hear the retail side of it. And I thought that was something that I wanted to bring up today.
Yeah, no, totally relevant. And you make a good point too. Like, what were the writers thinking? You said earlier before, like, because other, other comic books that do the multiverse. When I was in one of these issues, I think it's the first issue, the second issue. It's at the end, like about the author, and they're talking about the origin of this. And I believe it's actually the TV series actually was the ones who introduced the Spider-Verse, I believe.
Pretty much, yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. So that was huge. Another thing is the writers of the TV show weren't included in the making of this comic book either.
Not the main writers. The guy who wrote this is a writer who I think has done a couple of episodes. But here's the thing about this writer. Let me get his. I think it was J.M. DeMatteis that wrote this. He is J.M. DeMatteis is a writer who did work on the animated series on some episodes, but he is a veteran comic book author. He is someone that's been around for a long time and has written Spider-Man comic books for a long time. He's no stranger to this character. So what happened to this guy?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Something just seems off.
Cash grab is what it is.
Yes, that, and I think this is like one of those things where the behind the scenes is going to be the better story than the actual comic book.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Kind of like this.
The problem is we're never going to see it.
Right, kind of like the Justice League movie where everyone was more interested about the behind the scenes of the Snyder cut than the movie itself. I mean, just like we said, a missed opportunity. Just going back to the ending of this, like it was so bad. Like you said, we never get the resolution of how he got Mary Jane back.
No.
So basically, folks, Spider-Man's getting his ass kicked by Marloon, and then Kraven the Hunter, which is a waste of time. They try to bring him in for nostalgia reasons, and he's really a waste, I guess he has somewhat of a conclusion for him. But Kane Olsen, he transforms into this creature that looks half the Hulk, half Swamp Thing. And then he ends up fighting. Remember that is another point where he's fighting these giant Jurassic Park mutant monsters?
Yeah.
That was a waste.
Yeah.
Look, in the Spider-Man cartoon, he's done this too, where like Spider-Man talks to the villain and he kind of helps him reason to like, hey,
yeah, and like that's part of Spider-Man.
Yeah, but this was like in a 5-issue series. There's barely any action. When there is, Spider-Man gets his ass kicked, which we said we agree. But this last issue though, I'm like, because I knew like, okay, there's only 4 pages here. How are they gonna wrap this up? It was like, anyway, to kind of conclude this thing with like we say, which is dialogue. He just absorbed
so much dialogue.
That's how the problem's solved. Whereas Spider-Man doesn't even solve the problem. He doesn't even actually It's Kane.
If Spider-Man didn't show up in this, it wouldn't have made a difference.
Exactly. Kane would have just said, "Father, now you were part of me, and now I'm a good person," or some crap like that. That's how it ends. Just kind of, I don't know, just boring.
It was a real boring, disappointing.
I mean,
you hate to say it, but it is. And
terrible.
And here's the thing, and I'll also say this again, we have the ability when we talk about comic books and stuff like this to talk about it not just as fans, but to give that sort of other side of the coin here, having a comic book store, right? To talk about this right now, DC is outselling Marvel by tremendous amounts, and we'll have a recap episode about DC KO because we're doing our contest and everything, and we will have a recap episode when that storyline is over. And I don't know if you skimmed through any of those issues yet, or if you.
Oh yeah, man, they're great. Good.
They're great. The reason I wanted to bring that up too is like, look at the quality of that DC KO book, which I get is a big, massive storyline that they're going for.
Yeah.
But it's a mini series at the end of the day that's going to be 5 or 6 issues. Mm-hmm. And look how much story and emotion and action and everything that they can pack into that. But they could, what the fuck?
Right. This is like,
you know what I mean? Like, Marvel, step up your game. All of Marvel's books are like this, though. They're all just,
you think it has
like they're saying we just need to put something on the shelf. Marvel, they're like creatively bankrupt in the house of ideas. Marvel's always been called the house of ideas. They have the house of bad ideas right now. There's nothing that they're putting out on any of their books. And this book, Spider-Man 94, is a great example of like why they're failing.
I'm just curious because I know the Marvel Studios is different from the comic book, I believe. Mm-hmm. But you think there's any kind of Disney influence where they're just saying like, X-Men 97 was a hit on Disney Plus. Let's put out a feeler. Let's say we'll put out Spider-Man 94. See how that goes. You think that's potentially something might have happened?
I wouldn't be surprised.
But how do you put this out, PJ? You can't see it.
I know. How do you put this book out?
I can't. It's like one of those things where like you think about Batman the animated series, like because you see how
X-Men 97 is a great example.
Yeah, they put so much into it. I felt like if I was like called upon, like, hey, we're gonna wrap up Spider-Man 94. What? We get to wrap up that series. I think that would be such like an honor and whoa. I mean,
Yeah.
you get to wrap that up where it ended on that cliffhanger where you can kind of go anywhere with it, but this is where you go with it. I mean, like I said,
It
I hated it, man. I hated
yeah.
it. And then,
And I wanted to talk about the art
oh
real
yeah,
quick. So the artist that did this book, let me get his name. I wanna get his name right, and I don't wanna shit on this guy too much
yeah,
because, I don't think the art situation was his fault, but this guy's name, Jim Tao or Jim Toe was the artist on this. I don't think that this gentleman is a bad artist by any stretch
no
of the
way. Yes,
imagination,
I know where you're
but
going with this.
you're making it a comic book based on a TV show, and you did not make any of the characters look like they looked in the TV show.
No way. It's only like I know what they call. I guess like when you first open up the issue and it has like I'll say like the title card on it, like who
Yeah.
wrote it. That's the only part that kind of has that old school from the television animation, and we all know the animation in that show wasn't great to begin with. Neither was X-Men, but X-Men '97 kept the
Fix that
character,
up.
and they just they
They
updated
cleaned
and
it up.
yeah.
Right.
In
They didn't
this,
really
the only time
it
they're
still looked like X-Men '97 though. It's
yeah.
just
In this, all the characters don't really look like Mary Jane does not really look like herself in the cartoon. It's all like these different. Just like Peter Parker almost looks like we talked about it in our earlier episode when we did this. Like Peter Parker just looks like a different guy. I mean, he wears that same T-shirt, that
yeah, here's that polo, that
that
blue
that
and
pastel
yeah.
T-shirt. But other than that, I mean, yikes! I mean,
But,
now it's all like you
and I
said.
know everyone has
It's
their own different art styles and all, but you were hired to continue the TV show, so you have to do that. Like, you just have to do that, and look, I'm sure this guy is like I said, I got nothing against his talent. He's a talented artist. He clearly knows how to draw these
yeah.
things,
That's
but
the issue is that it's well
the
drawn,
issue is
but I'm surprised.
it just doesn't look like what I want it to look like because I want it to look like the cartoon and it doesn't. So even in that, like it's almost like they said, I have an idea for a Spider-Man comic book, and they said, let's just slap a 94 on the end of it so that we can kind of get more people to read this because
Right.
otherwise no one's going to read it.
Right.
Total cash grab.
Right, but even let's say this wasn't even connected to Spider-Man 94.
It still wouldn't be great.
Yeah, it's still horrendous. It's still I wouldn't
Yeah.
recommend. It's boring
it's
as
still
hell.
bad.
It's boring as
I
hell.
think it's just worse because it's
Yeah.
connected to 94.
Yeah.
It's
No,
bad either way.
no
It's just worse
question.
because it's
No
connected.
question. And like I said, I'm really hung up. The whole thing was bad, but nothing else. I'm like, because I'm while reading these issues, I'm like, okay, they're building up like, okay, this will be a final big battle between Spider-Man and Marlon. This big build up, kind of like with Stranger Things, where he's gonna fight Vecna, and it's the worst fight. It's
It
awful.
was just the worst.
Just awful. I mean, it was that disappointing on that kind of
I
level.
kept reading every issue saying, how is Kane going to tie into how we got Mary Jane back? Because I
Yes,
felt like
exactly.
I felt like that was gonna be a thing.
Right.
Because they kept saying how he was able to feel Peter's memories,
Yes.
and so that's why he was like had that connection with Mary Jane. I'm like, I thought they were gonna like clone somehow, and maybe
Exactly.
because in the comic book, like the real comic books, right? Kane is a clone of Peter Parker.
Yes.
Like that's so I'm like, are we gonna go that route? Are we gonna find out that maybe Kane is Peter or something weird happened in the multiverse? I kept waiting. And then they just
Exactly.
didn't give us anything.
No, you're on the same page as I was thinking because I think in the television show when he marries Mary Jane, that's actually the clone. It's not the original
Yes.
MJ.
Right.
In this, he finally gets her back, the original one, and then he remarries her, even though they're already married technically. That was interesting. The first one he had to grieve, and then all of a sudden she's alive
Yeah.
again. So that was good. But anyway, like you said, I thought it was going to tie into Kane. Like, okay, maybe he had to fight this guy, and that's how he found that version
Right.
or whatever. But nope, none of that happens.
So now let me ask you this. As someone, because I know you're not as big into comic books as I am. You don't read them every single book that comes out, but this one caught your attention because of what it was. If they come out in 6 months from now and they say, here's Spider-Man 94 Part 2, and this is the story about how he gets Mary Jane back, are you willing at that point to jump back in and try again? Or are you so soured on this one that you're like, I don't think I want to do it?
You know what? I would say right now, I would say I probably wouldn't. For me, the ending is still the one on the TV show that he's still flying around looking for her. That's for me. I'd rather have that ending. I'd rather have the ending of a cliffhanger than this be it. Because this is not even an ending. Nothing even got concluded. Nothing wrapped up.
I agree 100%
Nothing
with
wrapped
you
up.
on that.
Nothing wrapped up.
If they were to come back and do this a second time and continue this, and they promise this is the one you've been waiting for, I don't know that I would care. You've turned me off so much at this point that I'm like, I don't need to read this. I don't want to read it because you've already fooled me once.
Yeah.
Shame on me.
Yeah.
Fool me twice. You ain't gonna fool me twice. Like that's I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. It was very disappointing. I feel like if they did bring it back, I don't think as many people are going to add it to their lists at the shop the way they did this one.
Yeah.
I think they had a total misfire on this, and it's a shame. It's a real shame because there are so many good comic books out there. So there's no reason this had to be bad. And if you're an independent comic book publisher and you're not Marvel or DC, and you're trying to put something out, it's almost more forgivable if those books aren't
Yeah.
as great, right? Because you're like, all right, well, you're just an independent thing trying to get your story out there, whatever. If you're Marvel and you're taking Spider-Man, shame on you. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Right? For this. Like, you can't treat your characters better. It's the most Spider-Man is probably the most popular Marvel character.
Well, yeah.
And this is how you treat Spider-Man. Like, do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm looking at, I have the comic book issue 1, that panel where it says we're going to figure this out, where it says, I'll read the bottom. It says, "You died, Mary Jane, and I was a double grief because in losing one of you, I realized that the other you, the real you, was still out there somewhere." That was kind of like how the TV show kind of ended.
Yeah.
And this is, "And now, after months of searching, of facing unspeakable horrors, I brought you home," and has a little star, little asterisk. And underneath that, it says, "Tale will tell eventually." Now, PJ, like you just said, does that mean eventually in another comic book series? And
That's what I mean.
And it was signed Danny. And if I look in the opening, I'll say the opening credits page, Danny
Is
Chasm.
that the editor?
That was the editor. But I'm just astonished because I know because at the end of the first book, it's like, send in your love letters of why you love the show as a kid and blah, blah, blah. And then all the other issues it has, or they have some of them published. And I just want to tell somebody, sometimes I feel like some of those letters are fake. I'm like, guys, you guys are really enjoying the series. You're really loving the storyline. I mean, please. They probably got
Can't be real.
hundreds, or they got the ones that people who actually did like it. Maybe 5 people liked it, and it was 100 people who disliked it. Of course, you're gonna put the
they're not gonna print the ones where people didn't like it.
Exactly. Oh my Lord. Awful. Awful. So, PJ, let me ask you a question. You just said maybe they might come out a part 2 of this, right? In the comic books, right? What about this? You think this is enough for them to justify an X-Men 97 thing where they bring back the animated series and they do like an 8-episode thing? Maybe I don't know exactly this storyline. Hopefully not.
Well, I hope not this storyline, but
you think they would?
Here's the thing.
What do you think?
I think if they would have just done a cartoon and they would have continued it, it would have been just as big as X-Men 97. I think putting this out, I mean, I don't know how big the crossover is between people who just watch the cartoons and stuff and read the books. I would think that this book hurts the chances of it happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I
would
agree.
think this book hurts the chances of it happening.
Because I remember in the X-Men 97, there's I think maybe it was the first or second episode where they're doing like a recap, and there's like a newsreel, and then you actually see Peter Parker with Mary Jane. Everyone, fans like, wait, they're in there, So there was some decent hype, and like you said, this kind of kills all that momentum. Someone has to say like, yo, we can't bring this storyline to the live action. You know what I'm saying? No way.
And X-Men 97, they did the cartoon, and X-Men 97 is fantastic storytelling. It's a brilliant continuation of that original series. After the first season came out, they actually did an X-Men 97 comic book to bridge the gap between the first season, the last season of the original X-Men cartoon, and the first season of X-Men 97. They put out a comic book.
Yeah.
And the art looked just like the cartoon, and it was I'm not gonna say it's the best X-Men comic book ever written or anything like that, but it was certainly entertaining enough that people kept reading it and they wanted to see how we got, what happened in the middle. It was done really well. So the blueprint is there. So they know what to do because they were able to do it with X-Men. I don't know how they managed to shit the bed so badly on Spider-Man.
I know, like I said, I don't know what else to say. I haven't said already. It's horrible. It's disappointing. The true ending is still the cliffhanger.
Yep.
And like you said, the audacity to say we're going to tell you how he got MJ, and they don't do it.
And they don't do it.
Incredible. And this story ends, folks. This isn't like it ends on some kind of cliffhanger too. Like this ends with Peter Parker with MJ and Aunt May in his arms flying around New York City. And that's it. Like the end. That's how it ends. The end. Oh.
It was a disappointment. It was unnecessary. The whole book is unnecessary. And like I said earlier, as a retailer, I would prefer them not flood the market with crap because if I have to have customers choose now because you've put too much on the shelf and they choose the one that's bad, I have now lost a customer who won't come back for something else. And that's what I feel like this book did. This is, to me, it brought in a lot of new people based on the cartoon being so popular. And this doesn't keep those people in my shop for anything else. This just turns them off to comic books.
Yeah, and look, and for
It's just bad all around.
right.
It's just bad all around. Nothing positive from this book.
Yeah, and I think for me, first of all, I loved the television show as a kid. I do look, I love comic books. I don't have the kind of collection that PJ's has, but I have about probably 100.
Yeah,
But this is something that makes me go like people like me who like get comic books every once in a blue moon. They'd be like, "Oh my god, man, it's not worth spending." I guess you bought all 5 issues. Let's say it turns out to $25 just to make life easier.
Yeah.
It's not worth $25.
But and that's exactly it. Like, it's exactly the point and you've said it perfectly just there. Like, you don't have any dislike towards comic books. You like comic books, but you're not a regular comic book, going to the shop every Wednesday, buy my new books. This brought you in. I remember when this was announced, you texted me like almost immediately and you're like, look at this shit. Make sure you get me this book. Like, it was, and that it had that hype to it because of how popular that cartoon is. And it had that impact on a lot of people. And so to drop the ball on it, you're hurting retail shops this way because this book gave me new customers, but I did not retain these customers who wanted just this book because there was no reason for them to ever walk back into a comic book shop. And if this is the first comic book they ever read,
Yeah.
they'd be like, comic books. They would say comic books are stupid.
Yeah, they would
Like,
say
that's
that
what
was
you would
hard.
say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the problem. That's the problem with this book. I don't know what else we could say about it other than how let down we were because it should have been. It should have been so much better than what it was. I mean, I would not recommend it.
Yeah, not at all.
I wouldn't recommend it for fans of the show.
No way.
I wouldn't recommend it to fans of Spider-Man comic books.
It's totally skippable.
Yeah.
What would you, as we're wrapping up, PJ, what would you give it a score out of 10? 10 being the best.
10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Look, as someone who has read millions and millions of comic books, I have read worse comic books.
Right.
So I can't give this like a 1.
Right.
Because there are books that are worse.
One. It's not
You know
a
what I
1.
mean?
Yeah.
But it is, I don't give it more than a 3.5.
Right. Well, you and I are right on point. I guess I'm being generous. I would give it a 4 just because it's below average. And like you said, it being connected to Spider-Man 94 makes it even worse. As a comic book on its own, like if you had no relationship, it's still bad,
Right.
So, awful.
Here's the thing. Here's what we'll leave it with. DC or Disney, Marvel Comics, owned by the Disney Corporation, is one of the most powerful entertainment entities on the planet. And here's the thing: with great power comes great responsibility.
How is this about?
And they didn't live up. They didn't live up to it.
Oh my god, PJ! Oh my god, I was just about to say that line. Oh my gosh, exactly. Perfect. Hey, that's it. I can't top that. Same time, same place.
That's it. Have a good one.
Boys and girls, lunchtime is over. For more information, visit their website at coolkidslunchtable.podbean.com. Follow the boys on all social media platforms. Just search Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. Now get to class before you get detention.